Hey, are we going to see a market crash soon? Are you a buyer struggling with interest rates and the prices that are out there? Well, I think I have a solution for you and I have some advice for you. And I want to talk about the market crash rumors. I don't know if you guys are hearing these, but I'm hearing these. So, first, let me get to the market crash rumor. We're not going to see a market crash, okay? The short story, the short version is that we just have too many buyers for the houses that are available. There just aren't enough houses. And so, whatever stat people are looking at, whatever the, I'm not going to say there's no issues and it's going to be like this thriving, perfect real estate market, but we're not seeing a crash. Okay. I heard a podcast the other day. I get sent stuff all the time from friends and family that, they read something or hear something in real estate and they send it my way. These guys were basically looking at stats from Florida, Cali, I think a little bit of Texas, and they saw some price depreciation. And then they looked into the foreclosures and they saw that from 2022 to 2023, foreclosures doubled. And they were worried because obviously those two stats right there would tell you, well, that's not good, right? And so then they were worried about a market crash because they felt that it was going to continue to perpetuate because the loan forbearance that the government was issuing for people who weren't paying mortgages and the lenders who were willing to forbear those loans was coming to an end. And so all of these chickens are going to come home to roost. There's going to be even more foreclosures, yada, yada. Okay, but if you look at comparisons to 2007 and 2008, okay, there were millions of foreclosures per year, millions, okay? And they were almost doubling as well. 2022 to 2023, it went from like 100,000 something foreclosures to 200 something thousand foreclosures, okay? That's not good, but that's not enough to cause a market crash, okay? You need millions and millions of homes to flood the market in order for it to be a problem, okay? So that's one thing. The other thing on the depreciation is they were only looking at areas or even nationwide on average, which is also bad. Nationwide on average is going to take these places, these hot spots during COVID saw anywhere from like 1.5x to like 4x their money. From like 17, 18, 19 pre-COVID purchases to like 2022, like early 22 peak was like 3x their money. We did not see that kind of appreciation in Chicagoland, and the whole country did not see that. And so on average, maybe prices are down a few percentage points, but really you look at like the hot spots and they're down like 5 to 15%. And that's what's throwing off the average. Those places are also expensive. So when you look at the price difference, there's a large number of depreciation there because the number is big, $2 million. Well, 10% of $2 million is $200,000, right? But 10% of 200,000 isn't that much. So if you look at those stats, it's going to be skewed. You have to look locally. Everywhere is different. Chicagoland, suburbs of Chicago, we're healthy, okay? I'm not speaking to Illinois. All right, maybe more people are leaving Illinois than they're coming in every year. We can address that later. But just looking at the amount of people that want to buy a house here and the amount of houses that are available, there aren't enough, okay? There are boomers out there that have 2 or 3 houses that are still alive. And there's more millennials than there are boomers. I'm not forgetting about the Gen Xers, but the Gen Xers are a smaller population. The millennials are even bigger than the boomers. And we're all in our 30s now. We want houses too. So, we all have jobs. We're all, 15 years into the workforce, 20 years into the workforce now. And we have the money to buy a second house. So boomers have a couple of houses. Millennials have a couple of houses. Who knows what the Gen Xers are doing? And then Gen Z is supposed to be pretty big too. So I just don't see a market crash unless we have too many houses. And nobody seems to remember these statistics of population. So that's my hot take. No market crash, okay? To that point, I do think we're going to see appreciation because of it. It's simply supply and demand, okay? The rates, the economy, all that stuff for once is not about real estate. So if you just look at the real estate piece, we don't have enough houses. So when the right house gets listed, there's multiple people that want it and it sells for more than what the last guy bought it for. And as long as you sell for more than the last time it was bought or purchased, appreciation happens. So if you're a buyer, back to my little hook here, if you're a buyer struggling with the price and the rates, it twofold. Either you're struggling with the idea and you're like, oh my God, like how can I pay this much money for a house like this? I don't want to pay this much money. Or you're like, dude, I would love to pay that much money. I just don't have the money. My budget is not enough to afford this house. I have a solution maybe for you. Okay. The first one is you have to get comfortable with the rate. You have to get comfortable with the prices. It is what it is. We cannot change it. And it's not going down. Okay. I have buyers who are like, look, we keep looking and we keep passing up on these places because they're too crazy expensive. And then the next one is even more expensive than that. And now we can't find the house we want. We should have just gotten the first one 2 years ago, right? They're kind of kicking themselves. So that is still going to happen. I know it sounds crazy. That's still going to happen in the future. The prices will appreciate. So get in the game. Now, if you're on the second point where you want to get in this game, but it's just been a little bit difficult for you to get in the game, the only solution, I was talking to an agent the other day. I said, look, what's the solution for your buyers who are priced out? What are you telling them? And, she didn't really have a good answer, to be honest with you. If you're watching this, no offense, I'm not going to throw you under the bus, but they didn't really have a good answer. And we were both kind of sitting there thinking like, yeah, it's kind of tough. My solution is they just changed this rule in November. Okay. You buy a multi-unit. Now before, to buy a multi-unit property, there were different rules, but pretty much you needed like 20 to 25% down. Okay. Sometimes you could get away with like 10 depending on who you are and your money and all that stuff. But most people who are buying a multi-unit property need 20 to 25% down. Even if you were living in one of the units, you needed that much money down. They just changed the rule in November. It went into effect November 23. You can now buy a multi-unit property with only 5% down. So, but you have to live in it. You have to be an owner occupant. So now this works for the people who have the stomach for this. Okay, I'd say a single person, no kids is probably ideal because obviously you have less responsibility. Moving and being a little bit of a flexible living situation is better for you instead of dragging your kids through the mud and changing schools. It gets a little more difficult as you get married. You got 2 jobs to worry about now. You got kids to worry about now. In-laws and your parents, like it just gets more complicated as you move forward in life. So if you're willing to do that, then this can work for you too. And it may be, a necessary evil to get in the game, stop renting, not really your ideal scenario, but, kind of a means to an end for you, if you will, because you can get a multi-unit property with 5% down and you can use either market rent if there's no tenant in the other units. You can use market rent to help with your debt to income ratios. The lenders can use like what they think the rent would be. They can use a percentage of that to count as your income. Or if it's actually rented, they can use the current rent to count as part of your income. And that helps with your debt to income ratios. Not only to get approved for the loan, but actually to help you afford this place every month. You're going to have a tenant living there or multiple, and they're going to pay probably at least half your mortgage, if not all of it, with the rent. It's so much cheaper to buy a place per month than it is to rent still. So usually the rent will cover it all. In this case, at least half, right? If you have a 3-unit building, 4-unit building, those other 2 tenants, that will probably cover your mortgage. But even if it doesn't, it's just going to help subsidize the rates and the price for the meantime. And then when, again, means to an end, if that's not the ultimate goal and it's not the ultimate house that you want, it still gets you in the game. You're making a smart investment because appreciation, what I just mentioned earlier, and that property will appreciate. The rents will also go up. Hopefully the rates come down and then you can refinance. Now it's much more affordable. You're making money every month, profit. And then if you want to move to the next one, you count all that rent. You either rent it out first if you can, or you count the unit you're living in as market rent for your lender and go shopping. If you need the 5% that you put into that property, or you need the equity that you've made because of appreciation and you don't want to sell it, there are ways to tap into that equity without getting into all the details. So that's my idea. Buy a multi-unit property if you can. It's only going to be 5% down if you live in it. I can't do that because I'm not living in one. So unfortunately, if I could go back in time, I would do this for sure if this existed and I knew what I know now. I would go back in time and do this. So again, that's my 2 cents. Hot take, no market crash. Real estate's just a supply and demand thing, and we don't have enough of it. And then also, if you're struggling with the rates and the pricing, I would maybe look into getting a multi-unit property and living in one of those to help subsidize some of the costs here until they go down. That's my 2 cents. Thanks for watching, guys.